What would the world be like if there were no trees? Forests form an important part of our ecosystem and are beneficial to us in various ways. They provide different useful things that we use in our everyday life and also remove carbon dioxide and add oxygen to the atmosphere. So you can imagine what would happen if we had no trees. The process of clearing of forests by removing trees through logging or burning is called deforestation. Deforestation has caused serious damage to the ecosystem globally. Deforestation started many hundreds of years ago. As population increased and the demand for food rose, land had to be cleared for cultivation, settlement and pasture. This was the start of deforestation. Major deforestation in India occurred during the British rule between the years 1880 and 1920. The British grew many cash crops in India, like indigo, cotton, jute and sugar, to increase revenue. As the demand for these products increased, the need for land also increased. The net result was that forests were cleared for cultivation. Taxes were also levied on this land, which was additional revenue for the British. The British needed durable timber to build ships for the Royal Navy. Once again, India's huge expanse of forests was the solution to their problem. Large amounts of timber from sal, antique forests, were exported to build the large and magnificent ships of the Royal Navy of England. With the advent of railways, wood was needed as fuel to run locomotives and also to lay sleepers under railway lines. Tea and coffee plantations were grown to meet Europe's growing need. This too was done by cutting down natural forests. Apart from the British, the Adivasis and the peasants were also largely responsible for the depletion of forests due to their dependence on them for fodder, leaves and fuel. Over the past 300 to 400 years, the forest cover is less than half. Global warming is just one of the several harmful impacts of deforestation. In addition to this, the water cycle gets disturbed, soil erodes, and several species of plants and animals get extinct. It also has an impact on the native dwellers of forests as they become homeless. Now that we have understood the adverse effects of deforestation, we must now wake up and help efforts to prevent it. Look, what has the scuba diver found? A chest! I wonder what's inside. Maybe ancient gold coins. That's Dietrich Brandis's chest, the first Inspector General of Forests of India, also commonly known as the father of tropical forestry. Look, his name is engraved on the chest. This is the chest he lost when the boat carrying it drowned on its way from Calcutta to Rangoon. It contains his herbarium and botany books. Actually, it was a turning point in his life as it made him change his focus from botany to forestry. Dietrich Brandis was born in Bonn, Germany, and worked as a lecturer of botany. He joined the British service in 1856 as the superintendent of the teak forests in eastern Burma. During the British rule in India, due to the demand for trees for railways and other requirements of timber by the British, Indian forests were getting depleted. The British were particularly worried about the use of forest produce by the local people and the unregulated felling of trees by traders. To conserve the forests, by 1864, the British felt the need of an organized forest department with a complete administration of the forests in India. They invited Dietrich Brandis for advice and to organize the administration of the forests in India. He was appointed the first Inspector General of Forests in India. Brandis formulated new forest rules and helped establish research and training institutions. He set up the Indian Forest Service in 1864 and helped formulate the Indian Forest Act of 1865. To help spread the study of forestry, Brandis founded the Imperial Forest Research Institute at Dehradun in 1906. He introduced and started the practice of scientific forestry or commercial forestry in India. Let's understand what scientific forestry means and how it was practiced. Scientific forestry is the practice of cutting down all the trees in a forest and replacing them with one single species of tree that is planted in straight rows. This planting of one type of tree in straight rows is also known as a plantation. The Indian Forest Act was enacted in 1865 and was amended twice in 1878 and 1927. The Forest Act Amendment of 1878 provided for the division of forests into three categories. Reserved forests were forests completely under reservation or the protection of the government. Protected forests were forests under partial protection of the government. Village forests were forests whose land rights were assigned by the government to a village community for its use. The enactment of the Forest Act completely changed the face of Indian forests and the lives of several people. It also became Dietrich Brandis's most significant contribution to Indian forestry. (1865). Most of the basic means of livelihood of the forest-dwelling tribes were banned by the British. Let's see what happened. The forest tribes were largely dependent on the forest for their livelihoods. Villagers thought a good forest was one that provided them with their daily needs, such as fuel, fodder, and leaves. However, the British thought differently. They felt a good forest was one that provided timber for building ships and railways. Teak and sal were the most popular trees. For this purpose, the British passed the Indian Forest Act, which completely devastated the lives of villagers. The daily practices of villagers, such as cutting wood, grazing cattle, collecting fruits and roots, and fishing, were banned and made illegal. Forest-dwelling tribes largely depended on hunting small animals like deer, rabbit, and partridge for food. The British also imposed a ban on the hunting of small animals. However, they encouraged the sport of hunting of wild and dangerous animals like the elephant, lion, and tiger by giving rewards. In fact, if anyone was caught hunting illegally, they were severely punished for poaching. Even shifting cultivation, which had been practiced for several generations by the forest tribes, was banned. Shifting or swidden cultivation was an agricultural system in which plots of land were cultivated temporarily and then abandoned. The forest tribes depended on this a great deal. Shifting cultivation had a few disadvantages for the British, and so it was banned. The land became useless for growing timber, led to forest fires, and also resulted in soil erosion. Furthermore, it was difficult for the British to calculate taxes. The Indian Forest Act snatched away the means of livelihood of many of the nomadic and pastoral tribes. They were left with only two options: either give in and change their occupation, or take the stronger path and rebel. Some of them changed their occupation and were forced to work in tea and coffee plantations, mines, and factories at low wages, bad working conditions, and under strict government supervision. A few others stood up against the tyranny of the British, which led to many rebellions in the forests of India. While the Indian Forest Act was passed as a boon to the British, it proved to be a bane for the forest dwellers. Do these things, a mango bough, chilies, a lump of earth and arrows, mean anything to you? Perhaps not. However, to the people of Bastar during the year 1910, these acted as secret symbols inviting villagers to rebel against the British. There were many rebellions against the British which are remembered even till today. The rebellion in the forests of Bastar in 1910 was one such. Let's learn a little more about Bastar and the people who lived there. Bastar is located in the southernmost part of Chhattisgarh and shares its borders with Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, and Maharashtra. A number of different communities live in Bastar and speak different languages, but they all have common customs and beliefs. The people of Bastar believe that land is a gift from Mother Earth to humans, and that humans should respect this gift. They look after their forests with great affection and care. An annual big hunt of a pargana or a cluster of villages is held, where the headmen of the villages discuss issues related to the forests. However, under the colonial rule, the people of Bastar were exploited for a long time. They were forced to pay higher land rents, work for free, and provide free goods to government officials. They suffered even more due to the famines that hit Bastar in 1899 to 1900 and again in 1907 to 1908. The proposal of the government in 1905 to reserve 2/3 of the forest land, stop shifting cultivation, hunting and collection of forest produce was the last straw for the people of Bastar. The initiative of rebelling against the British was taken by the Durwas of the Kangar forest, which was the first forest to be reserved. Households in every village supported the rebellion by bearing its expense. One prominent name associated with these rebellions is that of Gundadur, who was a rebel leader from a village named Netanar. A mass movement of destruction in the form of looting, burning of bazaars, schools and police stations and the houses of officials and traders spread throughout Bastar. Even though the British were able to suppress the rebellion, it took them 3 months to bring the situation totally under control. The rebellion in Bastar is worth remembering, as it was a major victory for all Indians. The work on forest reservation was temporarily suspended and the area to be reserved was reduced to half of the original proposed. Even today, the people of Bastar proudly recall and recreate the story of the successful rebellion in Bastar of 1910 and that of Gundadur, who became a legendary hero. What would you say if I told you that when people in the US celebrate Thanksgiving Day, they're actually celebrating a counterpart of Baisakhi celebrated in India, and vice versa? Even though the two festivals are celebrated by the people of two different countries with different customs and rituals, they are similar to a great extent. Both Baisakhi and Thanksgiving are celebrated to express joy over the harvest season and to express gratitude and thanks to God for it. Just as these two festivals of different countries are similar, the development and transformations of the forests of India and Java in Indonesia are similar to a great extent. Forest management in Java and India was started by colonizers, the Dutch in Java and the British in India. Both carried out large-scale deforestation for timber to build ships and sleepers for railways. Shifting cultivation was practiced for several generations by the forest communities of both places. Remember the rebellion in Bastar in 1910 and the important role of Gundadur in the rebellion. The Kalangs, who were the woodcutting community of Java, also rebelled against the Dutch in 1770 to stand up against the laws that restricted their access to the forests. In Java, the initiative to stand up against the Dutch was taken by Surontiko Samin of Randu Blatung, a teak forest village. He argued that the Dutch had not created water, wood and air, and that they had no right to place restrictions on the natural forest resources that Mother Earth has given. Forest services and scientific forestry was also introduced by the colonizers in both Java and India to manage forests for shipbuilding and railways. The Dutch in Java practiced a system known as the Blandong Diensten system, under which, just like the British in India, they imposed heavy rents on land under cultivation. Both the Dutch in Java and the British in India exploited the forest resources to meet their war needs. During the First World War and the Second World War, the British cut many trees in India to meet their war needs. Java faced a similar fate at the hands of the Dutch just before the Japanese occupation of Java. The Japanese further exploited the forests of Java and left the forests in an irretrievable state. The impacts of war took its toll on the forests of Java and India. The forests that were lost could never be restored to their original state. The forests of Java were transformed by the Dutch. The Javanese people may never have thought that somewhere in another part of the world, the Indians also met a similar fate at the hands of their colonizers, the British. Since the 1980s, the governments of different countries in Asia and Africa have learned from each other's pasts and are trying to find new ways for better forest management. They have learned a mutually beneficial system of forest management by allowing the forests to be managed by local forest dwellers, whereby both the forest dwellers and the forest department are benefited through conservation.